On va prendre quelques.
We'll be fielding some questions. There's one here to Rosa Maria Paya.
Mean that Cuban is now moving to democracy and an open society. You can take the microphone, yeah. Or you can speak in Spanish if you want. You prefer to speak in Spanish or in English? We will see. Okay.
I think that these new reforms actually improve some sector of the society, but this do not mean that the Cuban government is actually opening a process of a democratic process. I think that my presence here maybe means that they want to, the international community, think that they are doing exactly that they are being open. But the repression and the violation of the human rights, which are realities in my country, doesn't change. So I cannot believe in this change. I think that is a fraud change. And I think that we are working for legal changes. I think that people support that legal changes. We are working and we have delivered a proposal to make that change possible. The change that we believe and the change that Cubans want is the change who recognize the rights of all Cubans without exclusions, without privilege. And this have not happened still.
Another question for you. Do you plan to stay in Europe, or do you want to come back in Cuba?
I want to come back.
When?
In a few weeks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
A question to Mrs. Randa Kassis. Why, in your opinion, why are the international community not helped to end the war yet?
As I said, this is a very complex subject. We don't have alternatives in Syria. We have a number of elements in Syria which are not part of the revolt. We have the Islamists, we have the issue of financing, and the role that Qatar is playing. Qatar is much bigger, which is a greater game. Qatar has the reins, or holding the reins of power concerning what is happening in Syria. So we can understand the reticence, the hesitancy of the international community. The country, there are other countries involved, Russia and Iran, that are supporting it. And I'm not going to talk about the role that China is playing, because they're not playing a great role. But Iran, how can you say that Iran is involved in the Syrian issue? Well, I think, personally, this is a Sunnite Shiite conflict at the basis, and there is no desire to have the Shiite spread their influence in this region. So the conflict, first of all, we've seen this in Bahrain, the Shiite who rose up against the Sunni power, and we see this conflict, which is a long-standing one between Shiites and Sunnis, and we have to think of the fact that it's rather a question of interests. It's not really a religious problem. So it is in Iran's interest to keep the Sunnis far from power. That's the role that Iran is playing. I know they're giving advice to Bashar al-Assad himself. He is very stubborn. He's not applying all the advice that has been given to him. But we do have sources that give us information from within and who tell us domestically that he is being protected. And a lot of young people are being sent to Iran for training, for military training. So Iran is playing and wants to play a role. The question is, will that be the same Iran as today? That's the question that we should be raising.
In Tibet, should we boycott Chinese products to help Tibet?
You know, even within the Tibetan community, there are different schools of thought. You know, yesterday I was asked on the Swiss news channel whether we were opposed to the free trade agreement between Swiss and China. And what I did say is that we are not opposed to commercial relations between foreign countries and China. What we are opposed to is compromising one's principles on freedom and human rights for commercial interest. And I think that's a very important distinction to make.
Thank you very much. Thank you to all. Thank you to everybody for this session. And it's time now to close this session and have a good afternoon to everybody. Merci.